Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Leah. I am a Tumble Track ambassador, and I work on the education team along with Carrie, who is here joining me today. Whether you're joining in live or catching the replay, thank you for being a part of this event. We are super excited to have you all here for this session. Today, we are here for part 3 of our Compulsory Excellence series. We've already discussed common deductions and provided fun drills to fix them. We've looked at the routines as a whole, and now we're going to really dive into how those routines get judged and talk about a checklist for coaches to keep close while helping athletes improve. If you missed part 1 or part 2, you can find those recordings on our event page at tumbletrack.com/events. As a reminder to any judges in the audience, this webinar is eligible for 1 hour of CPE credit. So before we get started, let's see where everyone is tuning in from. So find the chat feature on the side of your screen and test it out by dropping in your name, where you're from, and what role you hold in the gymnastics industry, whether you're a judge or coach or parent. We'd love to know that. Please use this chat feature throughout the session by dropping in any questions or comments you might have as well. We are doing a $200 giveaway, and we'll be using the chat to randomly select a winner. All right, so without further ado, I am so excited to announce Nicole Langevin, who will be leading us through this session. Nicole is a passionate and experienced gymnastics coach and judge. She's lectured internationally. She travels around the world doing choreography. And on top of all of that, she also is a business consultant, podcast host, and the founder of Precision Choreo and My Gym Judge. We are super excited to have her here sharing her knowledge with us. So Nicole, Carrie, and I are going to give you the stage, but we'll pop back in for a Q&A and a giveaway at the end. Okay, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to those of you who have been a part of either parts 1, 2, or both. And those of you that are here for the first time, welcome. I am really excited to kind of wrap all this up with you guys. We did, as Leah said, kind of start off and go through what are some common issues on these compulsory events all across the board that tend to be the issues where kids are getting hit. But then instead of just pointing out problems, we also talked about how can we actually fix them. So if you didn't get to go see those, go check out the YouTube broadcast of those. And then today, what I did want to do is make sure that nobody leaves here today with any questions. So if you have anything based on the first 2 or from what I'm saying today, please make sure that you put your questions in the chat. So I want everybody to leave here feeling like they know everything that they could have known from today's session and beyond. So it is called routine checklist. So what I have done is put together just basically, not recreating the code of points for you guys, because especially you judges, you already have that. But what are areas to really, really focus on beyond what we kind of tend to think about with our straight legs and pointed toes? What are some key things that maybe sometimes get overlooked that can get us a few extra tenths? And just a real nice way for coaches, for you guys to make sure that you've hit all those marks and that you're not getting deductions where you don't need to. So we are going to start off here talking about vault. And again, all of this is brought back from the first 2 sessions. So if it sounds like a review, it's because it is. So to review, when we are looking at vaults, the vaults that are going over something, not our flatbacks, we are judged in 4 phases. So they are judged on pre-flight, support phase, post-flight, and then landing. So just make sure that you're tackling any of those execution deductions or body angle deductions, that you're catching them on every single phase, because that 3/10 bent knee, if it's held the entire time, turns into a 9/10 bent knee. So the big things that we were focusing on, and now if you had a checklist of vault, you'd have, countless things, it feels like. But if we're really just going to go, okay, how do we focus on maximizing our scoring potential? We're going to look at angle of repulsion, which is up to a point. So we want to be coming off the table at vertical. And we're going to look at a couple of vaults in a second too, so we can assess these. We're looking at the height in the post flight. How high are they going when they leave the table? We're also looking at distance. How far away from the table are they going? Now, remember, the distance and the height, but especially the distance, is taken based on the size of the athlete. So oftentimes, coaches, you might see a gymnast finish their vault, salute to the judge, and walk away, and the judge is still looking at the landing mat. That's just a little insider secret, but a lot of times what we're doing is we're looking at where they left their foot mark. We're looking back at the table, and then we're looking at the size of the athlete to make sure that we're assessing that appropriately. So all of those things, along with our too long in support, so are we too long on our hands, All of those are really a snowball effect. They all connect to each other. So I put them all together on purpose to say, hey, if you can get your kids fast, tight, and in the right shape, all of these things can at least be improved upon, and they should all be improved upon at the same time. Then we have our overall dynamics, and that's just something I want people to remember. So on bars, beam, and floor, we've got up to 2 for overall dynamics. And that means, are you doing hard stuff and making it look easy? Are you doing your skills and it looks like you're ready for the next step up? Well, vault is a little bit different. Vault, number one, it's up to 3/10 instead of 2. Number two, it's not necessarily that your front handspring vault is going to look like a timer for a handspring front in a compulsory level, because a timer for a handspring front is going to have that little bit more of a tight arch entry. But it should look like you could land on mats that are higher. It should look like maybe you could stall in the air and potentially twist. It could look like a timer for some sort of straight body vault. But those vaults should be quick. And the way I think about it is it should be loud. They should hit that vault and it should be a moment of excitement. And if we go back to the top of the checklist, if they are tightened in the right shape, they're hitting and getting off immediately. So that tackles too long in support and angle of repulsion. If they do those things, they have the best potential to go as high as possible and the best potential to go as far as possible. So our dynamics, really, if you're doing all of these things properly, the dynamics will be there. But it is that level of excitement when you see a great vault that's going to fall into that category of dynamics, and it's up to 3 overall. So let's go ahead and we're going to look at 2 different vaults right now. So what I've done is I've taken, and just so you guys know, for every event, we're going to look at a couple videos. Bars, we'll look at 3. And try to do a little bit of variety, because the reality is we're not going to see perfect routines from every kid across the level. So wanted to get some, some real life vaults in there. So here is a level 4 vault. That I think is pretty typical to a lot of the vaults that we're seeing at that level. So that level 4 vault, we'll watch it again. But when we think about the snowball effect, that vault did not come in super tight and fast and in the right shape. It had a couple little angles, right? A little shoulder angle, we had a little hip angle, we had a little elbows, we had the head out. Those are all deductions. But if we can straighten that body out and get tight, we will reduce what's happening because of it, which when we watch this again, you'll see she gets a little stuck because all of those angles in the body, they compress when you land. If they're extended, they pop off. So all of those angles, while they're deductions, are causing her to get stuck. They're causing her now to be too long in support. And because she's in too long of a support, her angle of repulsion gets later and later. And because she's on the table so long, she's not flying up in the air. And because she's on the table too long, she's not getting far away from the vaulting table. And then you put all of that together and we don't have a really dynamic vault. So let's look at that one again. So, and I'll play this a couple of times. So if we look at that, I'm saying if I can take up to 5 for how long she is on the table. Oops, that's the wrong one. Sorry, guys. I'm looking at probably about a 3. I mean, it is a substantial amount of time, to the point where I go, oh, she's still on the table. Because of that, if we can maybe try to catch her angle, she's right over here somewhere. So she's probably around that like 4 or 5. The height, because of that, instead of her being at that 0 deduction, I'd say she's again probably in like that, maybe about 3. She's about halfway of where she could be for height. Distance, I'd probably have a little more, about 2. And then her dynamics, I'd go at least 2 out of the 3 that I can take. All right, so we're going to look at another one. Now, I want you to notice, of all of those things I said, look at the difference on this vault and see how quickly everything happens and how all of the problems are solved. And that's not the one. Okay, here we go. Because she's in the right shape, because she's fast and tight, she was on the vault table for an instant, which put her off before vertical, so I can't deduct there. She really couldn't have gone much higher. And because it was so high, it had that little bit of wow moment to it. So that knocks out dynamics. She's a good distance from the table. Her body is straight. I mean, all of the things are happening, and it's all happening in an instant. It is that snowball effect. It's really hard to just have one of those things. So let's do that one again. No angle on the table, no shoulder angle on the table, no elbow angle. Right off at vertical, it floats. All right. So when we're looking at our checklist, we have all of those aspects right there. And again, if you tackle body position, these are the major things that will be affected because of it. And just another little tip based on something that we talked about the first time, if you can focus on getting the point of contact on the table on their palms more than on their fingers where it starts to squish, you're going to speed up all those major components that we just talked about. So that's my special tip for vault. Okay. And now we're going to go on to bars. So everybody knows bars is really hard, right? We're lying to ourselves if we say it's not. It's a little harder than everything else. It's not like any other event. And so we've got to make sure, from a coaching standpoint, we've got to teach it properly from the beginning, right? But let's be real. There's kids that find their way into level 4, level 5 that maybe still don't have that complete understanding of how to find the feel and rhythm of bars. And so we've got to make choices on how are we going to get these athletes in season to score as well as possible, while in the off season we go back and try to rework some things. So one of the biggest things on bars, arms being straight throughout. So if you have a kid that, like I said, is maybe struggling a little on bars, hasn't totally figured it out, you can get the arms straight. You're going to eliminate deductions because those arm bends happen every single time they bend their arms, those arm deductions. Now, you might have a kid that's actually really good on bars, and we'll see one of these routines where they're kind of stuck at like this, maybe 9-4, 9-5 area, which is great, but why aren't they, knocking it out of the park? And those kids a lot of times are doing little micro bends. So maybe it's just these little half things throughout the routine. And we talked about in, I believe it was session number 1, the idea that if they are doing those little micro bends, it's probably because they're not using their shoulders enough, and you can eliminate, because there's no shoulder deduction, you're supposed to use them. You can eliminate a lot of those little micro bends by teaching the athletes how to work through their shoulders a bit, and those half tenths that add up really quickly will go away. So it's a really good place to focus on for coaches when you're looking at whether your kids that are struggling or your kids that are great. And judges, as we know, that's a big separator, especially in the very beginner levels, of those really top echelon scores. And then we have the connected routine. So we had a discussion when we talked about this the first time that a lot of kids are trying to get the cast up. And the reality is the angle of height for your cast, the max deduction is 2/10. So if we are stopping or bending arms or breaking shape just to try to hit the angle, the math actually doesn't add up. So coaches, you're going to be much better off working those routines with straight arms, connected tight bodies. And once that really sinks in, those cast angles will come. But to sacrifice the other thing for the cast angles, we're going to end up scoring a lot lower. And judges are looking at your highest body part for your cast. And like I said, it's up to 2 for angle. So don't sacrifice all these other things, the overall rhythm, the potential stopping, the bending of the arms, and the body positions. Don't risk all of those just to try to get the cast up. Proper body line. So that's really going to be your body position. Another one to watch is the underswing dismount. So we've got that in level 2 as the dismount. We've got that on level 4 and 5 on the high bar. And what we want to be careful is that they're keeping a neutral head position. they don't have to go super high. It's great when they do. But if your kid can do an underswing with their head at least neutral, they will be able to maintain the bar at the thighs. They won't drop to their knees, and then they won't get that deduction as well. So if you're looking at your checklist, go, okay, let's tackle these head positions on the undershoot, because I think you're going to find a snowball effect of other things that are improved because of it. And then our last thing to think about will then be our angle of cast. So let's look at a couple different bar videos. We're going to look at 2 level 4 routines and a level 3 routine. Okay. Oh, I'm actually going to go. No, we can start with that. We're going to start with our level 3. So this level 3 bar routine is using the kip. And the thing with the kip versus the glide swing back and the pullover, there's no bonus for doing a kip. So, I completely understand as a coach wanting to prep the athletes for the next level and the long-term planning and all of that. But just remember, there's no bonus to doing it. They're doing a kip. The kip is getting judged as a kip is supposed to be. They also are expected to go right into the cast out of the kip. It doesn't have to be big or any certain angle, but it is supposed to be connected. So, just think about when you're headed into things like maybe states and you're like, okay, we want to just maximize our scoring potential as much as possible. Is that kip really the thing to do it? Maybe you used your season to train them with the kip and that's helping them for next time. And then you make that choice at the end of the season to go, hey, let's pull back for the score. Just keep that in mind. Sometimes that is a wise choice. So I want to watch this routine. She does do a kip. She does have an extra swing, and there's a little form on the kip. So if you're doing the math, is it worth it? I don't know. This athlete in particular, it's November. So she's not even going to start competing until December, and her state meet isn't until mid-March. So as close as it is, it makes sense for it to be in there. Competitive routine right now, it's going to get more deduction than probably if she did the glide and the kip and the pullover. Okay. So I want to watch this again, and I want you guys to just watch the elbows. And let's see how many times we're catching the elbow bend, whether it is a micro elbow bend, which is just that little teeny, or if it's an actual drastic elbow bend / noticeable elbow bend. Okay. So can you guys put in the chat, how many times did you catch an elbow bend in that routine? And I'll play it again while you guys are answering. All right. So let's see. I've got a 5, I've got a 4, I've got a 6, I've got a 7. Okay. So I want to point out something. There are skills that are naturally going to have some sort of break in expectation because of just the physics of the skill. And one of those things is going to be the front hip circle. So what I want to point out, because I'm sure a lot of people are going, oh, she bent her arms on the front hip circle. They've got to come around the bar with straight arms as well as the kip. So a lot of times what happens is kids will come around on the front hip circle with bent arms, and then they cast with bent arms. And that's going to be a 2, or that's going to be 2 times. When I watch this routine, to me, it looks like at the top of that front hip, her arms are straight. I think she's completing it with straight arms, and then her cast is with straight arms. So what I'm catching, and we could pause this, but that's not going to happen in reality. But what I'm catching immediately is a little bit on the kip. I'm catching it on the back hip circle. I'm catching it on the last cast, and I'm catching it on the cast before the back hip circle. I know that was out of order. So let's look for those. There's definite bend there. There's our 2. So a little bit on that first one. There's 3. Arms are straight at the top, straight in the cast, and then the little bend on the last one. The front hip is it's iffy in the moment. Where are you seeing that arm bend happening? So yeah, just watching that will make a big difference for judges for separating the kids that are doing it properly, and for making sure that we're not taking deductions or finding things that aren't actually there. Like upside down in the front hip, it's going to be bent a little bit. Okay. Oh, I see people's numbers going down a little bit now too. Watch too on their cast when they come back to the bar on a cast and bend their arms. That is a deduction too. So there's a little bit, and it's in the book about lack of control. So that bending of the arms when they come back to the bar on the cast will be an arm bend deduction, and then they'll potentially get deduction for being just a little bit out of control. And then that stuff is going to go ahead and contribute to our overall dynamics, because an arm bend in a bar routine is showing a sense of struggle, which is not showing them making what they're doing look easy. All right, I'm going to go to the next one. And okay, so level 4 bar routine. All right, so let's just look at overall dynamics for a moment. So if I can take up to 2 for overall dynamics, did that routine look easy? Did she struggle? Where are you guys thinking that would be? So we've got, we can take half tenths, but just go ahead and pop in the chat. Where do you think that would fall as far as overall dynamics? And I'm going to play it again as we're doing it. So we've got a little arm bend there, little loose on the cast, little loose on the jump to the high bar, some arm bend, little casts, little loose on those tap swings. 1.5, 2. Okay, 1. Yeah, and this is not an exact science. This can be a discussion. So some things to think about when you're looking at dynamics of this bar routine. Let's think of a bar routine that we're going to take the complete 2 on. For me, that's going to be the bar routine that really, really struggles. Like, is she making her skills? Is she going to make it? Do I have a deduction on every single skill? Is there stopping? So, I'm looking at this routine. Yeah, it's not super tight. Nobody's saying that. Her angles aren't there, but she is moving, right? We've got to look at like what's the biggest struggle and what's the worst struggle. She connected that whole thing. She connected here. She struggled connecting it, but she did connect it. So if I'm going to take 2 on this kid, what am I going to do when I have an athlete who's stopping after every skill? And then what am I going to do with an athlete that's, way over here? So just keep that in mind. We've seen enough routines. If they're connecting a routine, I'm not going to take the full 2. But I am going to take something for sure. And then what that also leaves me is, those positions where it's not a perfect shape, but it's not a body angle or body shape thing, but it's not tight, but it's that's where it can contribute to the dynamics as well. This routine for sure is going to get, the arm bends. It's going to get the cast angle. It's also going to get the shape because it's not perfect and the dynamics. But, what I would say if I were talking to this athlete's coach is I would just work on tightening up the shapes overall, because we've got shape deductions in her casts and we've got shape deductions on the backswing and on the front swing. So if I got to take one thing and go, how do I make this bar routine score better? I'm going to tighten up her shapes. I'm going to tighten up every time she's supposed to be a straight hollow, which is on all of her backswings, when she's upside down on the bar, and all her casts. That's a lot of times that the athlete is supposed to be in a straight hollow, which basically means their upper back is round and their hips are flat. If I can fix that one shape, I'm going to tackle over and over and over deductions that are potentially getting taken. Okay. Now we're going to go to another level 4 bar routine that I think is going to look very different to you guys. Yeah, should clear up. Okay. So that's one of those bar routines that is nice to have in your brain because sometimes we go to a meet and we never see that. Sometimes we go to a meet and we see even better. But the tightness, the body position, the rhythm, she went a little higher than expected on the undershoot. She actually jumped to the high bar tight. All of those things we've got to remember are possible. They can be expected. And we want to make sure that as judges, we are saving room to make sure that we are holding the athletes to a level of excellence that they can try to reach and not just allowing things to be good enough. This is the type of bar routine that we should be striving for because this is the type of bar routine that is going to lead to a strong level 5 and potentially an optional gymnast. So to point out a few things, we've got, like I said, the above and beyond, which is the underswing that goes up really nicely, the jump to the high bar that is tight, the undeniable shapes on the cast. Now, the high bar, we're at kind of a funky angle, so maybe her toes were low. I can't really tell. Knowing the score that she got in this meet on the routine, it probably was not. And then her rhythm at all. I didn't see a sense of struggle. I did catch an arm bend. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to play it again and taking out the idea of a potential cast angle issue because like we're not right on the side and it's very close. I do want to hear what deductions you guys are seeing in this routine. Okay. Yeah, Lisa, I think you're talking about the glide swing. So this is not that it matters, but my opinion is that that is probably my least favorite deduction, the lack of extension on the glide swing, because especially at these higher levels, if they can go kip cast handstand with straight arms and perfect body and great form, why are we deducting the glide? There's nothing else that we as judges really we can't judge technique. Like we can't say, oh, well, she did her full with her arms down and I prefer it here. Like we don't get to do that. We are supposed to judge body position, execution, amplitude, landing. That's how we judge skills. But for some reason on kips, we got to decide if we liked how extended they were on their glide, but if the kip was right. Anyway, long story short, yes, she has a little bit of lack of extension on there. And then the arm bend when she's coming back on the cast, a little bit of feet on the squat on. And what's tough with a kid like this is that if all the other stuff that we normally see was going on, would that stuff really be as noticeable? And that's really hard. And we've got to make sure as judges, like, if I'm going to take feet on her squat on, did I take it on every other kid on top of all the other deductions that we had? The answer should be yes, but be careful of catching yourself. Like, if you weren't taking it before and now this kid's really good, so now I got to find something, it's got to be something that you are consistently finding. All right, let's watch this one more time. So there's that arm bend. Yep, she can come a little bit higher on the swing into the glide, into the kip on the high bar. Okay. I do want to say again, that extension on the high bar, that is a deduction. It is a legitimate one, but let's make sure if we're going to take it for one kid because they're good at everything else, that we're taking it for everybody. And coaches, I'm sure you're really happy to hear that. All right, let's go back to our checklist and just look at these little extra tips. So we've got using shoulder movements to try to reduce or eliminate elbow bends. That's going to be a big one for you guys. And prioritize connections with straight arms and proper body position over cast height. And just so you guys know, you will be receiving this checklist in a follow-up email, so you'll have your own version of it to keep track of at the gym. All right, moving on to beam. So on beam, and this is as well as floor, we talked a lot about the throughout the exercise deductions. So we have 9/10 and throughout the exercise deductions based on footwork, posture, and artistry. There are other throughout the exercise deductions, but these were the big three that we were focusing on. So in their choreography, not in their skills. We're going to take the skills, we're going to put them over here, we're going to judge the rest of the routine. We have got up to 3/10 overall for how they use their feet. Were they turned out when they were flat? Did they pass through point when they left the beam and came back? Were the releves and high releve? Were the feet locked? All of that fun stuff, up to 3 off the total score. Posture and body line. On beam, we talked about how a lot of times that comes into shoulder angle. Are their arms over their head here, or are they nice and open? When their arms are side, they should be a little higher than horizontal and a little pressed back to create that open body line. And general posture, rib cage engaged, open shoulders. All of that is up to 3/10 as well. And then we have our overall artistry, which actually this is 3, I apologize. So that's where we're getting our 9/10. Then we've got text errors, lack of sureness. The text errors, you guys know, you got to do the routine the way it's shown in the book. Let's just be aware, though, it does take a little bit. Okay, so if you've got a kid who's you're worried that their arm is here instead of here, and they do that once, that's not going to be it. It kind of accumulates over the course of the routine. So if you are trying to maximize your scoring potential in a short amount of time, look at your skills and look at your footwork, posture, artistry. Those are going to be places where you can make a little bit more of an impact. Lack of sureness. This happens across the board in all levels, as does footwork, posture, and artistry. And the idea is it's a little bit of dynamics. Are they hesitating? Do they look nervous? Sometimes you have the kids that are doing routines where they're not necessarily wobbling, but they're kind of shaking a little bit. That kind of thing, that hesitation, that lack of mastery and confidence, that goes into the lack of sureness. But what I have found is if we're doing the artistry portion and the footwork and the posture, that overall is giving a sense of confidence. And on top of that, if the rhythm is on, that lack of sureness, it really is something that's kind of, if all of those things are not intact, you're probably going to get slammed with it as well. But if those things are intact, they're going to look sure of themselves. And so lack of sureness is not really something that you need to focus on as its own deduction. It's just kind of a result of all the other parts not being there. Okay, so let's look at some beam routines. I'm going to do 2 different beam routines here. We're going to do I believe, a level 4 and a level 5. So this is one, and we'll watch this again with some notes, but this is one where that lack of sureness seems to be there a bit. There's hesitation. There seems to be little wiggles on most of the skills, not confident finishes. That's all coming into play there. Okay. And not a bad routine. But there are definitely some major things that are happening that if tackled, can kind of snowball into some other things. So some of the notes I have here are overall footwork. So when I play this routine again, I want you to look at her feet in the choreography, particularly when they are flat, are they turned out? And are her releves all the way up? Sorry, let me just pull this up for you. So notably, right at the beginning, when they're on their knee and they swing up to that kneeling lunge, that's their first moment to show the judges that they know what's up when it comes to footwork. Their foot goes right on the beam, and if it's not turned out, we're kind of expecting that because usually they're not. When it is turned out, it's like, oh, okay, you know what you're doing. It sets the stage, right? And so now I've got in my brain, okay, footwork seems to be pretty good. Um, I also want you to watch the posture because, in my opinion, what I'm looking at is a lot of this stuff, which if I were on the side judging, I wonder, I bet her posture is off. I bet she's not pulled up tall. I bet her rib cage isn't engaged. As a coach, I'm going, her core is not tight. But I'm thinking that because those wiggles are happening, I know we've got deductions for the wiggles, but I'm thinking the posture is probably off throughout the routine. And then, like I said, that lack of sureness is happening. I've got feet on the cartwheel to see if you guys see that. I've got overall rhythm, but again, that's that snowball effect. The posture's off, causing wiggles, causing lack of sureness, and breaking her rhythm. Split jump, questionable on is that 120 there. I don't think it is from here, but I'm not judging her from the side. But that's probably something. And then on top of that, I'm seeing her back foot not fully pointed. Coaches, when you're trying to tackle the back leg and the back foot on split jumps and leaps, talk to the athletes about activating their very, very upper hamstring of the back leg. If they're thinking of kicking with that upper part of their hamstring, they can tend to get everything up extended and tight. If they're kicking with their foot, that's a lot of times where you get the flexed foot or the bent knee. And then I've got this same kind of idea on the leap. I'm not getting a lot of amplitude. I'm not quite sure the split's there. It's not fully extended. All right, so let's check this one out again. And let's see if you guys are seeing all of that. And this foot right here is almost a little bit in. Then we've got some feet on the cartwheel. Obviously the wiggle. And you can feel that overall rhythm. She's got nice little positions when she's hitting them. That releve was not all the way locked up. A little bit of height. And then, yeah, that was definitely very small. And you guys could probably see that back foot. Can't tell the vertical from the side, but it looks relatively tight. There may have been a little stagger of the feet, which you'll see on the checklist. We're going to look at that. We can wiggle there. I'm not quite seeing a moment in the air of that 120 being hit exact. Okay. All right. And now we're going to go to this level 5 beam routine. And while it's not perfect, the overall feel of the rhythm, she's got a turned out foot right there. I can see tight posture. She looks confident in what she's doing, attacking the landings. So this is where overall that snowball effect, footwork, posture, artistry. It was a good save there. I'm probably going to have about 2 on that though. That back kick being really high and beautiful, there's no bonus for that. Split jump's way bigger than it needs to be, and so is the Sissone. Those 3 things, the kick, the splits being bigger, that's where the dynamics comes in. I'm going, okay, this looks incredibly easy for her. I can't give her bonus, but I definitely can't take any deduction on dynamics. This is an extremely dynamic routine. Those nice forced arches are there. That's almost as good as you can get because that rhythm is totally acceptable for level 5. Nice height. So the contrast of going just tight and rhythm and how all those deductions can kind of go out the window. But I have to make sure again, when I'm looking at this athlete and I'm catching, oh, that one little foot could have been a little bit higher. Am I doing that with everybody? Am I being pickier on her because she's good? I have to be consistent. Whatever I did on the first routine of the day, I've got to do on all of the routines. Okay, let's go back to our checklist here. So based on what we talked about in sessions 1 and 2, we did talk a lot about finding the vertical and handstands. I showed you guys some ways to do that. And also coaches watching your kids that they're not doing that one leg in front and one leg behind thing. Even if they're together, they've got to be side by side. Watching, like I said a million times, the overall rhythm and artistry maintained. Watching that their dismount hits vertical and then maintains the shape all the way through the landing. This was covered a lot in session number 1 on ways on how to train the kids to find vertical and also not twist too early. Some of them will twist a little too early, and that's where you get the shape changes. And then when they do that, a lot of times what happens is that the exact quarter turn is a little bit off. So it's all got to happen together at the same time. And I know I sound like a broken record, snowball effect. So if that side handstand dismount is trained properly, and you can go back and watch the first video, you can see how the deduction of finding vertical, holding if necessary, position throughout, and landing are all tackled together. And then watching that footwork. Just make sure if the feet are flat on the beam, then they're turned out. And I'm seeing some great things happening in the chat over here. So once we get through floor, I do want to go back, and I know Carrie and Lee are going to help me go through those and try to address as many as we can. Okay, so we're going to go to floor. When we talked about floor, and this is on all the routines, level 2, 3, 4, 5, we are going to look at the acceleration of that last pass, making sure even in a round off single back handspring that is accelerating all the way through the rebound. We see some athletes that'll kind of do it and then the rebound kind of dies. That shows that they weren't tight, first of all, but that they weren't accelerating through the entire pass. So it should peak at the rebound at the end for levels 3 and 4. And then for level 5, obviously peak at the height of the back tuck. Another little one to look at is even split in their leaps and their jumps. So you might have a level 4 who, if they're supposed to be at 120, we can go over here, they're supposed to be at 120, they're past 120, but they're here, they're getting a deduction for being uneven, and they'd be better off being here. So just make sure if you're surpassing what they're expecting for the angle of their split position, that it's also even on both sides. And then some key points to look at, and we did this in part 2 of this webinar series. We went through some of the choreography and just talked about where can we really zero in and make an impact on the overall footwork deduction and just kind of the feel of the routine. So for levels 3 and 4, you have the chassé into that lunge tendu into the corner. Almost everybody steps onto a turned in foot when they step into the corner. I think you guys know the position I'm talking, before they turn around and they do their front pass. That is, and for the level 3s, it's before the leap. That is a great moment, just like the stand up in the beam routine, to show the judges that you know what's up. Step on a turned out foot into that tendu lunge into the corner, then turn around. Also watching the chassé itself. Make sure that chassé is like treated as something important. It should be almost like a jump. Once they're in the air, it should be full extension, just as high as a jump would be. Excuse me. For the level 5, they do the turning steps into the tendu lunge. So same thing on the tendu lunge. Make sure the front foot is turned out. Also watch the back foot not sickling, and watch those turning steps. Really high releve in them. Have them work them slow. Make sure every step as they're stepping and turning is in a really high releve. And judges, let's keep our eyes on those things, because there's athletes that are putting effort towards it and doing it, and there's some that are not doing it. We want to make sure that we're recognizing the difference. We've also got the jump half turn in level 4 and the jump full turn in level 5, up to 2 for amplitude. Those are jumps. And while a jump half is pretty easy, that is an area where you can easily lose a half tenth, a tenth, or more if you're just kind of jumping and skirting around. Um, and then they rebound into that into the kneeling lunge. Kneeling lunge, great opportunity to show a turned out front foot, and they're actually there for a moment. So your athlete will stand out if they go really high jump half, rebound, point their feet, and then land in a kneeling lunge with their front foot turned out. Level level 5, that jump full is a little harder than I think we all expected it was going to be. So little tip on that. Yes, they can get the amplitude deduction, but for coaches, if you have them think about not just spinning, but actually going rise on the half and then lower on the second half instead of spinning, it gets it a little more in control and fixes that excess of spinning that sometimes shoots them off to the side. Flat feet turned down in choreography. Watch the sliding into the split and the seat circle portion, that down to the floor section in levels 3, 4, and 5. We broke this down in webinar number 2 as well. As they're sliding into the split, a little trick to fix that front foot from having its own dance party on the way down. Have them look at their front foot on the way down, make sure it's pointed, and then chin up at the top. This will actually add to the artistry of that, but it'll also give them a visual to see what the heck their foot is doing and trying to keep it pointed all the way down. The turning around and the seat circle and the pike position, just isolate those in training and then have them move through them. But if they're just moving through them, we get a lot of kind of convoluted movement. And then watching your amplitude in the jumps and leaps. So we're going to look at 2 floor routines. We're going to look at a level 4 and we're going to look at a level 2. That's a nice turned out foot, actually. But then that front foot wasn't there. That was a good foot on the split, actually. We didn't do that a lot. Okay. So I was just pointing out a couple of the things in the routine that were things we don't get to see very often. So when we watch this again, the front foot going into the split, to me, it just looked like it was pointed the whole time, which is really, really nice. So I'm going to point out a few things going through this routine kind of in order so that we can look out for it together. We've got some little wiggles that are happening. So we potentially have, we might want to call that posture, I would say. There's different ways to look at it. But she does have a little bit of that going on at the beginning. We have a nice turned out front foot into the corner, which I want you guys to make sure that you're noticing. But then when she pivots around into that other lunge, the front foot should be in a really, really high forced arch. That one's down. So that's one to look out for as well. Those are two kind of easy moments to really capitalize on footwork. Then we've got the back extension roll. And we talked about the back extension roll in webinar number 1. That is an area where if you've got a strong back extension roll, not only are you going to be better equipped to have better bar skills, but when it comes to the scoring potential of the routine, that back extension roll is like a big black hole of deductions. We've got the body position of the back extension roll, so that entrance into the handstand. And I want to point out for level 3, they did change that 45 requirement, thank goodness. They just have to be above horizontal, but shape, shape, shape. Don't change the shape to get there. We're just looking for that straight hollow. And as long as they clear horizontal, they're fine. But when they're doing level 4 and 5, it still should just go hollow to straight. There's no arching that's supposed to be happening. So we have body position, we have handstand angle, we've got arm bend, we've got any sort of form that's going on going into it, and then we've got any control coming out of it, and then we've got execution. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So tight, powerful, aggressive back extension rolls, that is going to tackle so many potential tense and deductions. And this routine right here, I would say that's probably her biggest deduction in the routine. There's an arm bend, there's an arch. She does not look to be vertical. Jump half turn, probably be a little bit higher. Her leap position, while that was really nice, probably a little bit of amplitude. So those should really be popping up. And then we've got control on the turn. So when she gets to the full turn, I want you to watch, when she comes around at the end, is she in the highest releve possible? Does she have proper posture? Those are two separate deductions. Then when she comes out of it, P.S., she doesn't have proper posture at the end and the ankle's not super high. She's kind of taken a long step out of it. It's just not totally in control. So there's a few things going on in there. Overall execution is pretty good. Her artistry is not bad. Obviously, they can be bigger and more beautiful in their movement, but pretty decent. But I think that back extension roll is going to be the thing that's really going to make a big difference if she could change that. So we're just going to watch that one more time. And we have one more routine after this. So this that foot right there in the front, that's the one that's lacking, but the one before was turned out, which is very nice to see. Right here, a little bit more is pretty good. All right. And we've got one last one here. Right, and this is going to be level 2. So some things to look at in this routine that are going to separate these little level 2s are straight arm and shape in the back extension roll. They're not doing a ton of stuff, these guys, but if they can hit these marks, they're going to score pretty well. So obviously a nice cartwheel at the beginning, which I think most of them can do pretty well. Straight arms and tight shape on the back of central. It doesn't have to go up. It's just got to be tight and over. Then we've got their half turn. Are they balancing? Are they going up on their toes? Are they being really clear in their arm position? Is everything just exact? Because they're not doing a lot. So we want that to almost be robotic looking. Then we've got their leap. Doesn't have to be big. Does it go up in the air? Is their body nice and tight at the top? Is it even? We don't want to get the rocking horse, which is what we see a lot, and the crazy body all over the place. So we've got posture and we've got popping up and being tight. Handstand shape. Bridge kick over. Bent legs is usually what we get. At some point, something usually bends. So a little trick that I like to tell them is as they're kicking over in their bridge kick over, or for the level 4s in their back walkover, to squeeze their legs 3 times. So as soon as they jump off that foot, they squeeze here, they squeeze again at the top, they squeeze again here. They're squeezing their leg muscles 3 times. And then I am looking for overall watching the releves, and watching the finishes. And all right, let's check out this routine. Little bit of control there on the ending position. So when we're looking at that routine, we've got what the things that I'm seeing that are done well is the back extension roll. So we've got a really nice tight shape. There's no changing of positions. The elbows are locked. The leap for that level is actually a little bigger than it needs to be. It's pretty clean. There's not a lot of extra action going on. The bridge kickover, while the split isn't huge, fine for that level. Really, really good form on it. Some of the things that I'm missing are footwork overall. So we've got some kind of imbalances on the foot because it's not turned out and strong. The turn itself is not terrible. It's the releve in the turn and at the end is lacking a little bit. And then I would want to see a little bit more, openness on finishes. But in general, pretty strong level 2 routine. Let's watch this one more time and see if we can. Oh, and then the split jump. For level 2, I'd see that's on the better end. It's tight. It's a little bigger than it needs to be. But we want a little better overall footwork and a little sharper in the presentation. Okay. Full disclosure, that is my daughter from a year and a half ago. So don't say anything mean, guys. Just kidding. You can say whatever you want. She's not here. So I did see something in the chat about the cartwheel, and it's very, very tricky when you get into levels 4 and 5 with that cartwheel, and they are going to be changing it because they're accelerating out of something, but then they're like trying to get in shape for the back extension roll, but they're supposed to be up, but they can be a little down. It gets really, really crazy. Do the best you can for a strong back extension roll is all I have to say. When it comes to the level 2 one, yeah, they're just doing that to a stop. They're not coming out of something. And yes, the expectation is that they're up. So we want a little more posture. Oh, thanks, Lisa. All right, so let's just do our final checklist here. So focus on the choreography segments that are in the checklist prior to this. So just have those moments to go. Are we going as high as we can? Do we have nice feet? Because it's going to change the overall look of the routine. And treat your leaps as a split jump in the air. Everything nice and even and happening at the same time. And here's some coaching notes. So watch for your dynamics. Try to make things look easy. Watch your turnouts. Prioritize rhythm. And this is mostly on bars, but beam as well. Working on the rhythm will improve your scoring and will tackle a lot of the other issues that you run into. Bar connection, straight arms, tight bodies. Beam, a little tip that I gave in session number 2, I believe, was every 2 or 3 beats of the routine, try to have their chin do something, even if it's very subtle. This adds to their artistry, it adds to their rhythm, and it adds to the look of confidence. Okay. We'll stay there. And hi, guys.
Hello. All right. Thank you, Nicole. That was so great. We can go ahead and jump into our Q&A now. So I'm just going to pop over to the chat and see what questions people had. Carrie, if you want to help me out.
Yeah, why don't we start at the bottom, actually, at the things that were maybe the most fresh. I see Melissa asked, should there be a stretch after the cartwheel, we're talking about floor, into the back roll, most blended in my observation?
Yeah, so that's what I just covered, actually. They should show a stretch. It's okay to have the rib cages engaged and round, but let's just get through this cycle because it's going to change. It's hard to come from something fast to something controlled to then something fast again. But yes, they should show an extended position, but they can be in here a little bit. They shouldn't be bent over.
Okay. And then looking up a little higher, I saw, Leah, that you addressed a little bit about front walkover, but Alana asked, what deduction are people taking for a slow front walkover instead of a front handspring? Not a fast front walkover. Is it a front walkover slower than one that would be done on beam?
Okay, so I'm going to this actual part. It is not necessarily a front handspring anymore. So when let me just look at something real quick, so I'm telling you guys the right thing. So they're going to get a deduction for jumping onto their hands. They're not going to get a deduction for not blocking off their hands. They can, or they don't have to. What the judges are looking for is body line, extension, and then rhythm coming in and out, that it's not collapsing. So they don't have to block off their hands. They can, but they cannot jump onto their hands.
Okay. And then I saw one up here from Zenya. For confidence in competition, I noticed my gymnasts are performing completely different from when we're at the gym. What are some things we can do at our gym to help transition from our gym to the competition equipment? I just don't see the same behavior and missteps at our gym versus competition.
Yeah. And I think that's probably everybody, but the reality is, my suggestion is to make them as uncomfortable as possible and put them into as many different situations as possible. And that could be something like, having a bunch of your rec kids stand around the beam. Not their teammates. They see their teammates all the time. Have a bunch of rec kids come around the beam. Move the equipment if you can. Make the scenery look a little bit different. Make an announcement. Have the whole gym stop for the first 30 seconds of the routine. Anything that's going to make it feel different. I know you can't get off your equipment and into another gym, but as much as you can make their normal surroundings feel different, that's going to probably help.
I know I don't have that much penetration.
Yeah, those are good things. I don't think I saw any other questions in the chat. Oh, one just popped in. Is it a deduction for a gymnast to be archy instead of engaging their core? They tend to have an arched back more often than not.
Okay,
I'm wondering if that's
on a specific skill.
Yeah, because it isn't a skill. Maybe she means like posture wise.
I'm wondering if we're still talking about the walkover, maybe. But yeah, I mean, there's overall posture in the routine, which is up to 3, so they should be engaged. Let's see, overall and form beam their artistry. Yep. So that's going to be that up to 3 in posture and body line. So if they're loose in here, their rib cage is not engaged and they're not tight and tall and pulled up, that contributes to the up to 3. And then there's posture in the dance elements too, which is up to 1, and that's something to watch as well.
Yeah, very important things. Yeah, if anyone else has any other questions, go ahead and drop them in. But if not, we will move forward. Okay, so following our event today, make sure you connect with TumbleTrack on our various social media platforms. We post a ton of educational content, drill ideas, and super creative ways to use our products. So that's a great way to stay connected and get some good ideas to implement in your practices. As a reminder to our viewers, you will receive a link to the replay of today's event, as well as that checklist that Nicole mentioned, and that will be in the form of a handout later on. So it is time for our giveaway now. So Nicole, if you want to pick a number between 1 and 25.
12.
Okay, I'm just going to scroll and stop. It's Deborah. I'm not sure if there's multiple Deborahs in the chat, but Debbie Wilson. Yeah, so Debbie, congratulations. If you want to put your email in the chat, and we will get you your gift card. That is exciting. So yeah, next I want to introduce our sales team, which I recently joined as well. So myself, as well as these awesome individuals you see on the screen, are available via phone or email to help you build your dream equipment list and answer any questions you might have about our products. So that brings us to the end of our event today. Thank you all so much for attending this event, and a huge shout out to anyone who made it to all three. This is our last webinar of 2025, sadly, but we are already hard at work creating our lineup of presenters for 2026. And Tunnel Track is so proud to bring you content from top ambassadors on lots of topics. If you have a favorite presenter or a specific topic that you'd like us to cover, feel free to share your ideas with us, because we love to hear that input. So Nicole, thank you again for your incredible content, and we'll see you all later.
Bye, guys. Thank you.